Good morning. This is maths for today, which is Tuesday, and our learning target is to add decimals with varying amounts of decimal places. Okay, so this means that some of the numbers might have one decimal place, some of the numbers might have two decimal places or more. So you've got to be really careful when you are adding these decimals today. Okay, we're going to look at some examples together. I'm going to give you some tips that should help you to be successful today. Right, these are your 5 questions for today. We're going to have a quick look together through some of these and talk about how we can do them. Right, now I have put in here a couple of examples of maths work from this week from people in my class. So this work is Susan's and this work is Daniel's. Now there are lots of people in 5A and I know in 5B who are doing some excellent maths. The reason why I put these guys' work in is because of the way that they are setting out their work. So they are adding in pictures of their workings out. So if they have made mistakes, we can see where they've made mistakes. We can also see that they're not just finding the answers, but they are using the correct strategy. They are using column addition, column subtraction to find those answers. And that's really important for us to see as well. So these guys, one of the reasons why they've been really successful this week is because their work is so clearly and neatly laid out. Another top tip as well, and not all of you might be able to do this, but they've got square paper. And using square paper, just like we do in our maths books in school, is a really good way of making sure that your digits are in the correct place, that your decimal points are in the correct place, and that your answers are right. So if you do have any square paper, that would be a really good thing to use this week. Right, let's have a little look at this first one here, okay? Because as you can see, the two numbers that we're adding have different numbers of decimal places. So I've written this one out here, and I'm lucky because my whiteboard here has squares. Okay, now I've laid this out first. I've got my two numbers and I've got my add sign and I've put in my decimal points. So I'm making sure that those decimal points are right above each other. They're not floating off anywhere else. They're directly beneath these ones. They're all directly beneath each other. I've also labelled at the top my tens, my ones, my tenths, my hundredths and my thousands. So it kind of turned it into a bit of a place value chart. And this might help some of you guys today as well. What I'm going to do too is I'm going to add in, and this might be useful if you don't have squares, I'm going to put in zeros here. Now this doesn't change the number, it just acts as placeholders, but it will help to keep my numbers in line, and it would just help me to know that when I'm adding here, I'm adding 4 and a 0. Okay, so let's start on the right, so let's start with our thousands. 0 and 4 is 4, hundredths, 0 and 4 is 4, tenths, 4 and 0 is 4. Got my decimal point in the right place, let's just double check that. Then we're on to the ones, 7 and 4, it's 11. Okay, so laying it out really well, making sure that I'm using those boxes there too. Okay, so that one as well, you might want to put a 0 as a space holder in there when you're doing it, just double checking that those decimal points are aligned. Right, now this one is, we've got some very different numbers. We've got this number's in the hundreds, 143, and this number is 1, and then decimals after it. So let's have a quick look at this one. Now again, I have laid this out just like I did before. I've used squares, and I've labelled each of my columns as well. I'm also going to put in my space holders. Yeah. And this is be really easy to put in a digit in the wrong place. So this just helps to make sure that everything is aligned. So 5, 4, again that decimal point. Yeah, making sure it's all lined up. Ones, 4, 4 and 0, 4, and 1 there. Okay, now I can also use a bit of estimation to check. If I've got 143 and I've got a number that's just a bit over 1, so I'm kind of adding 143 and 1. a little bit more than 1. So I would expect my answer to be 144 and a bit. So using estimation as a way of checking is a really good method as well. Okay, so that's that one. Now this one is a really lovely question. Some of you, just from looking at this now and from what we've just been talking about, might be able to spot the mistake that she has made. Okay, hopefully that will jump out at you. So you've got 2 steps with this one. Work out the correct answer, which a lot of you are doing with these kind of questions, and that's great. But this bit is the really important bit, the bit that me and Mr. Dart are really looking for. Can you spot and explain her error? So if you were her partner and you were sitting next to her in class and she had done that, what would you say to her? How would you explain what she'd done wrong? How would you help her to get that right and to not make that mistake again? So there should be some sentences there explaining. It might help if you explain verbally to somebody at home before you write it down. That might help you to do that. Okay, question 4 and 5 should be quite straightforward. This one, you've got 5 digits to add together. So your column addition will be quite long because you will be adding 5 digits, not just 2 as what you've been doing before. So really important that you line those up correctly. Okay, we want to see you're working out, not just your answer. So when you're uploading your answers, put in and show us you're working as well. This one's really lovely too, because again, you've got some numbers which are much bigger than others. So you've got to make sure that your decimal point is in the right place. Okay, so top tips there. Work carefully, set out your working clearly and neatly. Use square paper if you've got it. If not, maybe draw out a bit of a place value grid or just make sure that those digits are in the right place.